We mentioned there about Jonathan David and the fact that he didn't really get going in Qatar as he would have wanted. You've played in major tournaments, Janine. From a goal-scoring perspective, sometimes is it about just getting off the mark early?
Absolutely. I think one thing about goal scorers in major tournaments is everybody knows if you're trying to score, you're not going to score. When you have that in your mind, when you're so focused on that sole thing, it's a lot harder to score. So I hope that these guys, especially Jonathan David, are going into this tournament feeling relaxed, focusing on what he does really well for this team, which is link up play, holding onto the ball and getting into the box and finishing. And then when you talk about penalties, I think that ratio speaks for itself. He's someone that should absolutely be at the penalty spot. So as someone who has played in a World Cup and not scored, and someone who's played in an Olympics and has scored, the difference is all in the mentality.
I want to ask you about a comment that Matthew made there with the grass just going in ahead of the Copa America opener on Thursday, because I was there with you in April for the She Believes Cup, and there was a double header that day on the opening game. The US played against Japan, and then Canada played later in the day against Brazil. Was the grass okay in having been installed just a few days before in Atlanta? Do you think it'll hold up on Thursday?
It would be unfair to say that it didn't have an impact on the game. The grass was laid vertically, which meant that when you were playing side to side on the pitch, there were like lumps in the field, and it definitely affected the way that the ball moved. I don't think 3 days is enough time for that grass to settle into the stadium, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact that has on the game. I don't know if these guys have a plan to get on the pitch prior to the game. That would be great for them to feel it out and have a feel of how the ball moves, especially against a team like Argentina. It'll be interesting to see the impact that it has on a team that is so possession-based. So it definitely impacted our game when we were there earlier in the year. So hopefully it doesn't have as big of an impact on these guys.
Yeah, hi, Janine's Kevin. How's it going?
Yeah, great.
Good, good. Well, you know, I actually played on newly laid turf as well. Actually, I've experienced that, and it's not actually great. You know, it comes up in clunks. Hopefully, it is laid well. Just going back to what Luke was talking about there, though, Janine, in terms of goal scoring. I've played with strikers who have been extremely selfish. We lose the game 2-1 and they've scored, and they're actually quite happy on the bus going back after the game. Were you ever in that type of mould? Do you think Johnny David could be in that type of mould? And Stevie's worked with him alongside him as well. But does that come into the effect? You spoke about getting goals early. Does that come into it in any sort of way into your mindset?
I think it's interesting because when you're playing in a major tournament, it's about winning games, right? And from my perspective as a forward, it's always awesome to score. You're going to feel good about your performance. If you score, that's the joy of a forward. You could have a terrible game, score the goal and be the hero, right? So that's part of the reason we all want to be a forward. But I think in these tournaments, you just have to be happy with getting the 3 points, getting a shutout, putting the ball in the back of the net. So for Jonathan David, that's his role on this team, is to score goals. But also he has to put in the performance to set the ball up for others, and I think that's where he could play a really big role on this Canadian team. We said it, he had a lot of the ball at his feet against France, so can they continue to get him the ball, get him into goal-scoring positions, but not only that, but how can he contribute to helping this team win games? Because at the end of the day, these guys want to walk away with 3 points, and if I'm a striker on that team, we get 3 points and I don't score, I'm still going to be quite happy.